I like, look at Jen's trying to be a Gen Z, right?
Whatever, Mr. Master Vibe Killer.
What? Why am I a vibe killer?
No, Jen, you put the Jen in Gen Z. And
Thank you, Jay.
yeah.
Thank you.
And it's spring break for you. So
Thank you. Exactly.
funny.
This is my spring break hat. You're just jealous, Harry. You would wear the hell out of this hat.
I know, I would. I would love to wear that hat and get away with it. But
This is actually from Madame Paleta, and we'll talk to them in a few weeks.
Madame Paleta.
Madame Paleta. It's basically a flavored tequila. It's like a tequila that acts like an F&B, and it's from some of the ladies who used to work in Heineken USA. So more to come there.
All right. Jordan and we're going to do a live tasting of June Shine's Willie's Remedy. THC.
Live tasting.
Remedy.
Still
Plus.
gotta work
It comes
today,
like
Harry.
Comes in an old medicine kind of bottle, you
Yeah.
know, like the old show. And we're going to take a shot, and then by the end of the podcast, we'll see if we're acting any differently.
Time this podcast for 1 hour exactly. They say it's fast onset, fast offset. So
yeah, it's good stuff.
nice. I didn't try it because y'all see what happens to it, but I am very intrigued by.
You'll see.
Y'all know.
You'll know what happens to me. Cheers.
Y'all know.
Cheers, Harry.
I do like the packaging. It is. I do want to try it for sure.
It tastes like Fresca.
Huh?
Yeah, almost kind of like a sorbet type. It's good.
A little sorbet.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect that from Willie.
Willie's got range.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BeerNet Radio, the podcast where all your dreams come true. This is our Wednesday Warehouse segment where we talk about other week's news. This is the home podcast for trade publications, Beer Business Daily, Wine and Spirits Daily, and Craft Business Daily, all which can be read in one single place now at beernet.com. You can still go to their respective websites, but you can also just go to beernet.com and you'll get the latest headlines from all three publications, plus links to this podcast, plus links to summits, and also our distributor productivity summit, which we're going to have. It's going to be a webinar in July. And if you go to beernet.com, you can actually, the sign up is open for that. So you can go check it out there, sign up for the webinar. Got some great speakers lined up. Should be good. Let's start off. So first of all, I want to know who wrote the Texas Senate Bill 3 story.
That would be me.
Jen did.
Okay, good. Because I wanted to let you know, Jen, that the office of the Texas Senate does subscribe to Beer Business Daily. And so I'm sure that Dan Patrick has already read his comparison to Barney Fife.
No.
He's the one
He
who said it.
invoked Barney Fife by
Yeah.
name, Harry.
Oh, he did?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay, good. Because I was reading, I was like, okay, he's the most powerful politician in the state.
No, he invoked, and I was very careful to. That was run straight. So if it sounded ridiculous, that's straight up how it sounded. Okay.
Well, I watched part of that his press conference, and there was a lot of fear mongering. Just, I mean, basically, hide your kids, hide your wife, because they're getting everybody
Yeah.
psychoed up over here on this.
Exactly.
B9.
Yeah.
It causes. Did you know this, Jordan? That it causes acute psychosis, and that it causes people to go crazy, lose their lives.
In
Marijuana,
29-year-old
by the way.
kids. Yeah.
I mean, I thought he was talking about meth or something.
You would think so. You really would.
Yeah.
And he said, one of these days somebody's going to die. Somebody's going to
Yeah.
die.
Right.
But he did say, I'm going to harken back to the modern day philosopher Barney Fife.
Barney Fife.
We're going to nip this in the bud. We're going to nip it in the bud. I mean,
Yeah.
that was almost spot on how he said
Oh
it.
my God. Okay. My bad. I didn't get to that part. I couldn't watch the whole thing. Just having just politicians this is not a left or right thing, just in general, when they get up and start posturing. I'm like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
We all know that you had a prostitute in your hotel room last night.
Okay.
And, these guys, come on. All right.
Come on now.
Well, so, I guess the news there is that it's passed the Senate and now it goes to the House where it's going to probably have a harder time because there's a big constituency that creates jobs, and it's 5 billion in tax revenue or something. So
I think it's 8. But
8,
yeah,
yeah.
and I forget 50,000 job. I forget something like that. And yeah, we'll see. You know, what's funny is the Trib has been covering this super closely, and before their rhetoric was, oh, you know, the prospects in the House are much, you know, dimmer. And it seemed like the most recent rhetoric from them was that the House and the Senate are somewhat aligned. So we'll see. I would just add that Marijuana Business Daily ran an article today talking about some of the existential legal threats around the country to intoxicating hemp. So yeah, who knows? Is the tide turning? That will be interesting. And I know we'll talk more about that later because we've got some of our predictions. But in that article, I found it striking that in 4 states, and I think one of them is Kentucky and maybe Tennessee, but I could be getting that wrong. They're trying to pass as part of bills third-party distribution as a necessity. Mm-hmm. And you've got some of these hemp guys saying like, oh, no, we can't have that. We can't have that because then everything will be on the table after that. And to me, that's so ass backward because if you want this to survive, you need to regulate it. It's going to be regulated or it's going to go away. And the good actors that are part of like the hemp guilds and stuff need to make that their top priority because it's just not going to survive otherwise. Just get on board.
Also, beyond that, if you require third-party distribution, then you'll probably get the beer distributors on your side. Right. And guess who's the most powerful lobby in almost every state?
Right.
The beer distributors. Exactly. Usually it's here's oil, real estate, and then beer distributors. So they're like the number 3. So, I mean, get them on your side and you get any bill passed. I mean, I remember explaining that to Scott Metzger when he was trying to get self-distribution passed here in Texas. And I was like, dude, all you have to do is get the distributors to go for it. You have to have a cap on it, and that'll get them on board. And that's it. That is ended up what happened. So, yeah, I thought Lieutenant Governor Patrick, he also gave a stark personal warning to any independent liquor store operators out there who are currently carrying D9. And, guys like David Jabor and, people, the reason I think it's chicken shit is because Total Wine's not going to listen to Dan Patrick. They're going to sell the shit out of it. And so you're putting your own in-state liquor stores at a disadvantage.
Jen and I were talking about this, and I think in Texas, what has happened is it's gone unregulated for so long that there's so many synthetic stuff. And that's such an easy argument for the legislature to group it all in together. And I don't think they have the patience or the energy to try and suss out what's healthy or what
to me, right. All they have to do is just say it has to be beverages. None of this flour. Wyatt, he lives in Austin. He goes down to his corner gas station and buys a joint. Like it's not, it's like it's chemically altered CBD that, and that maybe that should be regulated. If you make it beverage only and force it to go through a licensed beer distributor, that weeds out all that bullshit.
Yeah.
You're not going to see Reyes or John Now or the Andrews or the Hallam's picking up a product that's going to be harmful or could be illegal. They're just not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, and Patrick talked about beverages, but he said they're being mixed with alcohol, which, I mean, we have never seen. So.
No.
Flat out wrong.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it.
Unless he's talking about like after getting it, but you can't control that, right? Yeah. To our knowledge, there are no canned beverages that mix alcohol and D9 or D8 or what have you, because D8 is very much legal in Texas, which is funny. Like there was a really good Houston Chronicle article that ran yesterday that really put a fine point on a lot of different details that I didn't realize. Like, all the license holders, all the HEBs have licenses too, but they don't carry like D9 beverages, but they might have, some CBD something.
Right.
The CVSs have them too. But what was interesting is they had written something about how the law developed, such as that like D9 products in the state have some sort of de facto cap, but D8 doesn't, because when that law was written, they weren't even considering D8, and D8 is the synthetic stuff, right? Or the more synthetic stuff. So it's all ass backwards. There needs to be some cleanup of the market. Absolutely. I've shared this story so many times. I've been to bodegas where this stuff is just mixed in with other drinks, and that is dangerous. If somebody doesn't know what it is, they could pick it up and drink it, and it could be a kid or even somebody like me. If I drink that,
somebody's
then I get in the car.
Jen.
Well, someone's going to die.
die.
I mean, I don't know if someone's going to die, but
I don't think there's a single recorded overdose death of marijuana ever recorded in history. So I'm not sure where he's getting I mean, maybe
Wow.
in a car crash. I don't know where he's
Yeah.
getting at that somebody's going to die.
Well,
But
this was very like fire and brimstone, right? And
yeah,
the thing that also got me is that they kept talking about the kids, but everyone they cited was 20 something. Like,
yeah,
come on. And then the other thing was like, he'd read the name and then he'd be like psychosis. And he'd be like, but then he was like anxiety and depression. I'm like, all right, you show me one zillennial that doesn't have anxiety and depression. Like next.
next.
Yeah.
Well, what other big news stories did we cover this week, Jim?
Big news Wednesday, we did see Bill Rensby abruptly leave Constellation Beer. There was a memo sent to wholesaler partners. He was with the company for a very long time, most recently the chief customer officer. And nobody knows why, but his replacement is being sought after as we speak. So a lot of things going on for Constellation this week. What other big things? You had a rousing tome on the Midwestern Premium that I think has sent some analysts scrambling.
Good. Well, more to come on that. We'll publish this on Sunday, but Monday's issue, I'm going to have more on the Midwest Premium. The way that they price aluminum in this country, you would think that we're a banana republic, but it's the most archaic, weird, scammy, bullshit, graft, corruption, faithless thing I've ever seen. And somebody's getting rich. It was Goldman Sachs. Because if somebody's going to get rich on any kind of scam, Goldman Sachs is going to have some kind of way to get in on it, right? And Blackstone. But they got so much heat about it that they sold it to another firm so that there's a less visible firm that's scamming on the Midwest Premium. Anyway, allegedly. We'll get into that.
Allegedly.
Yes, in Monday's issue. I mean, it really doesn't have much to do with the tariff on aluminum, except that it makes aluminum more expensive even without the tariffs. And so,
And provides cover, right? The tariffs provide cover for them to jack up the Midwest Premium, right?
Right, because it's aluminum's already up 70% since January, and they're saying it's probably going to be up like probably 80 or 90% just because the Midwest Premium is going to add on their margin. It sucks. The big brewers have kind of downplayed the effect, but they can move stuff around. But it's the craft brewers and the regional brewers that are going to get really hit hard on this because they don't have a stockpile of cans. They buy cans as they need them, and so the price is already up. So yeah, it's going to be tough.
It seems like it's the biggest mystery in beverage. Every time I hear somebody talk about it, Gavin has talked about it ad nauseum, and it always ends with nobody knows why. Nobody knows why.
I know.
No. I mean, it's like the rum cover over.
Yeah.
It's like the Midwest Premium and the rum cover over are going to be my two sacrificial lambs this year, because I'm taking by the way, just FYI, I'll be taking the reins of Wine and Spirits Daily for the month of April because Sarah Barrett, our executive editor over there, is taking a sabbatical. And so I promised her that I wouldn't just run off her entire readership, but I think the rum cover needs some sunlight, so it might be a good opportunity for some little research. All right, so what else we got?
We talked about SB3, but Jen and I got to go to Willie's and get to see a THC offering peddled legitimately, which was pretty
well for the time
current
being. Second.
It was
Right.
real, but like we kind of talked about, I think that's something that people don't forget. And once you open that door, people are going to wonder why it went away. And maybe they're not clued in. Everyone I've talked to about this, it's a long story about the Farm Bill and this and that. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. And it's still, I don't think they really understand it. But if you can provide it at an occasion like that, I think people will start to dig in a little more.
The proposition of
y'all
serving
went to
it.
Willie's Ranch, right? Where he has like a film festival during South by Southwest, right?
Well, it's like it's during South by. I don't
Music
actually think it's
festival, not a
an
film.
official
Music
South by.
festival,
Yeah, but it's from where it's the set that's still there from when he filmed. I think it's Redheaded Stranger.
Mhm.
So there's all kinds of little houses, and it's really cute. And tickets
an
are
old-
really hard to get. So
Yeah, it's like an old-timey Western set in
Is it like in Dripping Springs or something?
Spicewood.
Spicewood,
okay.
Yeah. But there was a lot of big beverage companies there. Tito's had a big presence there. White Claw.
Jack Daniels was
Lagunitas.
there.
Yeah.
Jack and Coke.
Hmm.
So Red
So-
Tree.
Oh, yeah.
Tree. Was Mighty Swell there?
Didn't see Mighty Swell.
I
Saw a
don't
lot
think
of Liquid
so.
Death.
What about
Yeah.
C4? I'm just
No.
thinking of Austin companies you'd think that would be there.
Yeah, it
I
was
didn't
a lot of
see any
local
energy.
vendors.
Yeah.
What's the vodka there called?
Tito's?
Where?
Oh, Deep Eddy or
Deep Eddy, yeah.
yeah. They weren't there that I saw.
Tito's took over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was a lot of fun.
How do you feel, Jordan?
It's starting to set in.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I
Especially
forgot
with all
that you
these
guys did
lights in
that.
here too.
Yeah.
Every time I like turn one way, I start to get a little fuzzy, but I think that's just the lights.
I don't want to freak you out or anything, but there's a dead coyote right over your left shoulder. Yeah. And he's always watching
yeah.
you. So
Angry coyote.
he's an angry coyote. And I hope he doesn't bother you, but sometimes late at night when you've had some Willie's Remedy things happen, he starts talking to you.
The legend of Willie's Remedy. Hey, I have
Yeah.
a question for y'all. Okay, so I know y'all have all three of you have tried a decent amount of different D9 beverages. I've tried a couple, but I wouldn't say I've tried a ton. Do they all hit pretty much the same or do they hit slightly differently?
I think they hit pretty much the same. Yeah. Did I tell you, have you guys ever seen this movie called Pet Detective with Jim Carrey?
I've heard of it.
Okay, do you remember the first scene where he kicks a box down the road?
Yes.
Okay, that's how my case of flying kites arrived. All right. It was wrapped in cellophane and it was sopping wet. And I was like, what is this? Like, what? And I had to cut it open with a razor and it just kind of blew open and like every third can was exploded. And so anyway, I had to salvage which cans. I had to wash them off and put them in the fridge. So I've been drinking a lot of flying kites is the point of that narrative. And they hit. Let me tell you, it's a 12 ounce. I want to say is it 8%? It's a little higher than most. So
Okay.
Are they 10 milligram?
I think it was, I can't remember shit, but they hit. They hit fast too.
Yeah, they hit differently for different people too. I remember what we get Reexes where Ted used to work, and I had a few of those, and then we went over to my parents, and I drank like one, and then I left two there accidentally, and my dad texted me and was like, "What was that stuff?" Like he knew what he was taking, but he didn't think it was going to set in that fast and that hard. So
was your dad like sitting in his car just saying, "Are we moving?
yeah,
Are we going yet?"
I wasn't there, so he just told me it was not a fun time. I think 5 milligrams is probably what is appropriate for most people.
Yeah.
And this Willie's brings up a good point too, because you feel like you can do mimic spirits with it and take a shot instead of having to drink a whole can, because if you just drink a little bit of a can, you're not going to get the 5 milligrams. You got to finish the whole thing. And so some people might want to
do what we just did, which is what we just poured is about 5 milligrams.
Yeah. And
1.5 ounces is 5 milligrams, which I think, again, I know that the hemp guys don't want to hear this, but limit it to 5 or 10 milligrams per container or per can. And that also gets the beer distributors on your side, because you want to, the problem with this kind of beverage is it's not real scalable because you're not going to drink more than one.
yeah.
And so if you keep it at 5 milligrams, at least you
Some
could,
people are.
yeah, I mean, you could have 2 or 3. So
But yeah, exactly.
I mean, the hemp guys should get smarter. They should limit it to 5 milligrams on purpose. They would sell more.
Yeah. I think it's the guys that want to cut costs and don't want testing and don't want to pay a distributor that are saying no. But I think a lot of the buttoned up guys do. One other thing, I would just have to say, like, D9 beverages do not hit me like spirits. I wish they did. They make me very sleepy at best case scenario. So if I could find one that actually did mimic spirits, I'd be there all day. Number two, I think the buttoned up players definitely, adhere to, if it says 5 milligrams, it's 5 milligrams. But I do think there are players out there to where the dosage is completely off. So that's another thing that we have to be wary about. But I know B has a lot to say about this whole world as well.
Well, let's get into it. Are we doing predictions now?
Well, yeah, I think
Mine as well.
Yeah. You want to kick it off, B?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. We've been talking more about D9 than I expected. But I think, at the beginning of the year at our summit, we had the panel on D9, and our panelists basically said, this is here to stay. I think intoxicating hemp beverages are here to stay, but also more broadly functional beverages, which I think this could be considered too is also here to say. I think it's just that it's evolving so fast that all these old school politicians just do not know what to do with it. And so instead of coming up with some regulations, which might take more time and effort and understanding, a lot of these states now are seeking outright bans. And so I don't think at the beginning of the year I thought that there'd be a total ban, but I do think that could likely happen by the end of this year, at least in one or two states. California, and this is happening in both Republican run and Democratic run states. So I think California is maybe surprising on its face, but not so much in that the ban that the governors sought here is more to do with helping the recreational cannabis industry and the concern that D9 could take away from that. So the emergency ban that he sought last fall was, basically up. I think they last 90 or 180 days. So that is being an extension of that ban's being pursued with the Office of Administrative Law in California that could go into effect next Monday. So on their website, as of today, it still shows under review. But if it does get extended, which I don't see why it wouldn't, it would go into effect Monday and be extended through June. And I think they're only allowed 2 extensions. So at some point, I know there's a couple things going on in the legislature this year, this session. I think they're going to have to come up with a solution there.
Yeah, so they've kicked the can down the road like another 90 days or whatever it is. And so they're going to have to codify it, which means they're going to have to pass a bill, which I'm sure the cannabis industry in California, the lobby is pretty strong and they would be against it. So it's just a matter of who, or they could go the ballot measure way in California. That costs a lot of money, though.
I think I did hear that you guys will remember this name, Aguiar Curry, who was on Gavin's side and trying to crack down on all this. I want to say that they're behind maybe a bill that puts a cap on this stuff and does allow it, but I could be wrong, and we'll see.
She was behind the one last year before this emergency ban, through the health department, kind of the roundabout way, because her bill didn't make it past the floor. So it didn't get that final vote it needed to be codified. And so they said it was, like a lot of these states said it was like correcting a loophole, not necessarily with the farm bill, with the federal farm bill, but with California's reaction to the farm bill. So the state's law that they put into effect after that 2018 farm bill. And so she said that would correct it. It didn't pass, and then they were pissed. And so they got this emergency ban for, 6 months or whatever.
And that one would have gone through dispensaries anyway, I think. So that may be the same thing, but we'll see. Yeah. There's no market if that's the case.
Give a quick message to beer distributors who may not have formed an opinion on this yet. I can't remember which analyst published it this week, but like 60% of Gen Z have said that they have replaced alcohol with cannabis in the last 30 days. 60%. So, I mean, and if you know people in that age, it's everybody, right? It's everybody. So, if you want to participate in cannabis in any way, the way to do it is D9 beverages. That is the way. And they're going to get more and more popular as, people like Willie Nelson and, Cheech and Chong and celebrities like that get into it. And mandate it through 3-tier and tax it and regulate it just like a beer. And that way you can participate in the profits. Because right now you're just giving it away to the black market, or if legal in your state, then the recreational cannabis dispensaries. So, that's just my advice. But, that nobody listens to old Harry, They're like, oh, that old kook. He's got a dead coyote in his office. I don't,
Harry listens to Harry. I know that.
You damn right I do. I have an audience of one for sure.
All right. What other predictions?
Jordan?
First of all, I hate doing predictions. They're so hard. But here's my best shot.
Well, it's almost April, so.
So everyone is wondering. We've seen a lot of non-alc deals as of late, and everyone's wondering what's going to happen in bev-alc. And I think they're coming. Molson Coors, they've cleared out a lot. They're pretty much done with craft. They've shut down a couple breweries. They're done with their Pabst contract. I don't know how much longer their Coke licensing deals are going to go on. And they have glaring holes in non-alc beer and canned cocktails. So I think those are the two places I would look for with Molson Coors. I don't think Constellation's going to make a deal, but I think they might be back sniffing around. All the advantages they have had seem to look like vulnerabilities under this Trump administration. And if you're in for another 3+ years of that, that could motivate one to move.
What do you mean move?
To see what's out there,
To buy something?
to possibly buy something, to possibly merge with somebody.
And you think like a canned cocktail, it wouldn't be a craft, right? Because they've tried
No,
that
and I was going to say, I mean, they've had
with
their
disastrous
they've
results.
had their acquisitions and they haven't had the best track record as of late.
Right.
But if you're stuck with high-end Mexican beer in this administration, that might not work out that well.
Right.
So that's just a thought. And then the other one is Athletic. We've all been waiting for what's going to happen with them. I think they are more motivated, possibly. This is just a hunch. After seeing something like Mick Ultra Zero in 2 months get to the same distribution as their lead pack, that's got to be a little disheartening for a brand as successful as Athletic has been in leading this forefront, and then to see somebody just come get right in line with you in a couple months.
That's the AB way, man. That's the big red machine.
I know it's incredible what that wholesaler network can do, but that has to, I think, push Athletic to maybe say, maybe we need a little more muscle behind this brand.
Strategic partnership or a sale?
Yeah. You think they would sell?
I think they could get a little bit more with KDP. I mean, they have gigantic breweries. I don't know if a brewer would want to say, I know they have their proprietary process, so they might have to, but I feel like a big brewer would want to move that into their own.
Yeah. I don't know that, I don't know Bill's mind, Bill Schufelt, the founder, and, he has a partner, but, I think he sees a lot more run room, so I think he would leave money on the table. You could at least figure that I said it on Caroline Levy's podcast that I think it'll get to 5% of the beer industry. What's it at now?
It's
Like
it's
1, 2.
it's still below 2, I think.
Yeah,
in
it's like
all
1.8.
channels, and then in food, it's a little over 2. I think.
So
I have to double check.
You could. In Europe, it's like 10%. So I don't think it'll get much over 5, but I think 5% is a reasonable expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Depending
And
on
if,
the time frame.
you wouldn't want to sell equity until you get closer to that 5, but I don't know. You might be right because like you said, they run those huge breweries. Those are capital intensive. They suck money.
Well, and if
They're
I'm
about to-
Bill, I see Poppy goes for $2 billion, and I think their valuation is like $800 million. There's no way I'm selling before at least $1 billion or $2 billion, right?
Yeah.
If Poppy goes for that's insane to me. That is,
Yeah.
So I guess that's the news we forgot. Poppy selling right to Pepsi for $2
God, the
billion
AB
almost.
distributors just cannot catch a break. I mean, they just can't catch a break.
Well-
It's just been a bad 2 years.
And another prediction, although Comil beat us to this one, but I think they might possibly catch a break in keeping Alani New now that Pepsi took Poppy.
You think?
Well,
If Pepsi is going to devote their network to building up Poppy right now, it might be a lot to take on both at the same time. So
Right.
I don't know if they'll forever keep Alani New, but for the
Interesting.
time being.
That's interesting. I mean, they sell in separate channels. Poppy is a grocery channel and Alani is a C-store.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would be, separate parts of well, I would think that maybe Celsius doesn't want to give it to Pepsi. That might be
Right.
another motivation.
Right.
yeah.
And Celsius they've been there, done that, and their growth is starting to level out after a huge push from the Pepsi network. So
Yeah. No, you're right though. Integrating Poppy that's disruptive and it'll take a lot of bandwidth, and so yeah, good.
But I mean, and Pepsi's used to moving soda, right? So that's
Yeah.
kind of But I did not get from what we read, maybe Com has info that we didn't at the time of the news breaking, but I did not see any definitive note that, what they were going to do with the distribution. But of course, if they buy it, they're going to put it through there.
Yeah,
There's
no,
no reason they
they
wouldn't.
kept it.
Yeah.
They didn't touch that
Mhm.
subject at all.
And you'd think they would have, right?
Mhm.
They would have. They would have said, "Oh, we're excited to bring it into the network," and so that leads me to believe that at least for the time being, they're going to keep Alani new where it is.
Yeah.
Jen, what are your predictions?
Well, I have my hat because here come the rain clouds,
Oh boy,
No, I've said this before. Mine are easy and obvious because I feel like 2025 is a year where you should play it safe. Okay. Everything is, the poop is the dung beetles are out throwing poop at the fan. I think the bev-alc is going to have a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad year. And I think beer is going to get it worse than spirits. Who knows what tariffs could do, but it's death by 1,000 cuts this year, and it's Hispanics in hiding. General market consumers, consumer sentiment is at its lowest level since it was in 2022. That doesn't necessarily always translate into different spending, but there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy, and that means people are more discerning where they spend their dollars. And at the same time, like we've been talking about during this whole podcast, there has never been so many competitors to bev-alc from, D9, which who knows what will happen with that, but D9 indeed, to mushrooms, to non-alc, to everything, right?
bone broth.
What? Lowenbrow?
No,
Bone broth.
Bone broth.
Bone broth.
I heard that
Psychedelic
somebody's trying
bone
to come up with a
broth.
bone broth drink.
LSD
Oh,
bone
that's
broth.
gross.
I think Anheuser-Busch did that for dogs. It was just like a bone broth
It was
beer.
Bush.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bush bone broth. I remember that. I bought it for Biscuit. She loved it.
That's hilarious.
It was like $3 a can though. I was like, this is kind of weird spending that much.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
I
and
like
then
that.
there's no,
I don't
I'm
like
not
the
done.
drink.
There's more. There's more, right?
Okay.
We're waiting on, weather, right? But weather has never been so volatile. That's not good, right? We've got the Surgeon General stuff. We've got dietary guidelines. We don't know what RFJK Jr. is going to do ultimately, right? Like he is a teetotaler. We don't know, and that could bring it. The dietary guidelines going south on beer or bev-alc could bring it back into the news. And I just want to leave you guys with this on that prediction. The Oracle of Ohio. We know who that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who?
That's Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
No, that's the Oracle of Omaha. The Oracle of Ohio
is the
Jim
Winking
Cook.
Wizard.
No, well, it's Jim. Okay, it's Jim Cook.
Okay.
It could be John Lane, but it's Jim Cook.
Jim Cook. Okay. I like that because he is from Ohio.
He is. He's from
Yeah, okay.
Cincy. Everybody forgets because he's Boston Beer, but he's from Cincinnati. And they have a plant there. And last month on earnings, somebody asked him like where he sees per caps going in the next 5 years. And he said, there's no single major factor, but you got a bunch of stuff that's well under 1% in terms of its effect on per capita consumption, trend toward moderation, particularly among Gen Zs, new health concerns that have cropped up in the last year. And he talks about his Aura ring, telling him not to drink alcohol because it would disturb his sleep, and D9 being a different animal than weed, like basically everything we've talked about here and more. And he says, so you add all those together and it could be, instead of total alcohol consumption growing 1% a year, it could be down 1% a year. And yeah, absolutely. Like this is Jim's life work,
That is, that doesn't sound like much, but that, over 10 years, you're down 10%. So, it's scary.
Yeah.
And that's funny that he brought up his Aura ring.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about that. Remember we had breakfast with him, Jen?
Yeah.
He loves to talk about that Aura ring. He needs to take that thing off.
Very
It
Gen
sounds
Z
like
of
it's
him.
bumming him out,
Take it off, Jim. No,
Take it off. It's causing him stress. That's not,
it's weird. My stress levels go up every time I look at my Aura.
yeah. Every time I look at this Aura ring, my cortisol goes out the roof.
So
Wyatt, take that out. I'm trying to cuss less on the podcast. Well, I don't know if you know this, but you can't cuss in the first 2 minutes of a YouTube video. If you do, it'll just they'll just shadow ban it.
I didn't realize
so that's
that.
why I do cut out the cussing in the first 2.5 minutes just to be safe. And then yeah,
I didn't know that.
it's a little
I
hack.
didn't either. Do we have an E on our pod because of the cussing? Or is it because of the alcohol?
Probably because of both.
Okay.
Wait, what does the E stand for?
Explicit.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was like, we're
Parental advisory.
explicit? We don't feel explicit, but I guess,
Well, I mean, I'm not really interested in the under 21 market anyway. I mean, this is a business podcast. You have to at least be old enough to have a job in the industry.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So,
another
fuck it.
thing. That's another.
Leave
Speaking
it
of a
in.
job in the industry,
Leave it in.
you can pour beer at 18, but draft
Yeah.
beer sucks too. I got to say that. I have never had so much terrible draft beer in the market in my life as the last couple of months.
Do you
It's
mean
like
total
y'all just
tasting?
Yeah. I
Oh.
was at the airport a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to name the brand because it would implicate the distributor, but a very large volumetric brand. It tasted like a kettle sour. It was not a kettle sour, right?
Mm.
Like I was at the Omni Barton Creek. Yes, my life is hard. And I had also a very high velocity local brand that tasted like line cleaner, right?
Huh.
And so it's
Wow.
bad. Yeah. The quality of draft beer right now is dismal. I'm
That's
sorry.
too bad.
So
That's
that
too
doesn't
bad.
help the industry. That's our romance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's our chemical romance.
Yeah.
good
You
one.
know, if you haven't had a big gulp of line cleaner mixed with your beer lately, I mean, that's a rite of passage in this industry.
Ugh, you
You have
haven't
to
lived.
you have to have that at least once, or at least a big shot of diazonol.
Oh, for sure. No, it's
Um,
funny because I texted you and another distributor what that happened to me, and they were like, "Yep, that's why we moved to all non-toxic chemicals."
Yeah, right.
We
At least
know
it won't
it's gonna
kill you
happen.
anymore. Yeah, because
Oh my God.
it's killed a few people over the years.
Yeah. And my other one, since I've rambled on, I already said I had to double down on last year's bet that Boston would have a good year. So I doubled down on that one. And Filippo Falorni agrees. He just put out a note upgrading them to buy, basically because he thinks Sun Cruiser is going to skyrocket and, everything else is going to do less bad or trot along still okay, like Twisted Tea. So I agree with that. And then I think, and I've said this before, I think drinks will get a little more partisan and populist, and that could take many forms. We've already seen it with, AB and their American nomenclature, but I think, you could see the rise of other populist brands. You could see people, aligning with bev-alc or not bev-alc, being left or right. It could be a trend.
So Debbie Downer, where's her pink hat?
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah.
No. Okay. Bad year for beer. I stand by that. But that doesn't mean that certain brands aren't going to grow. I absolutely think there's going to be growth brands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Add a little bit on that, Jen. My one thing I would say is our hope is weather, but you bring up a good point in that it's so volatile right now that you really can't rely on that as your one hope. Because Lester's talked about it before, but the summer could be brutal. It could be super, super hot, and that's your one last little hope. So I can't really push back on that, sadly.
Yeah. The other thing that we can't hope for, I don't know if you saw that email from Lester, Jen, that he shared a slide where, and my whole career, there's always been baby boomers were a big bulge in the population, and then it went in for Gen X, and then you had millennials. So it's like an hourglass shape. And we were always, oh, we don't have to worry because this big generation is going to come through and it'll increase overall demand. And now it just looks like a big rectangular tower. There's no bulge. There's no, so we can't, those days are over of expecting population growth to save us. And as millennials get older and drink less, it's just going to, and then we have Gen Z not drinking as much. It's going to be tough. Yeah.
Did you just say, and then me, I'm Gen Z, not drinking as much?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yes. And then when you're like me, who listens to Chapel Roan.
Oh God, I got here early to work, and Harry was downstairs, and I could hear the Chapel Roan blasting.
Yeah. In the shower.
Yeah, I was jamming out too.
Yeah.
But
Who doesn't like Chapel Roan? We just need her to drink some beer, and then everything will be okay.
No kidding. Okay. Well, I forgot that we were doing predictions, so I didn't really think about it. So I'm just going to take the opposite of yours, Jen. I'm going to think, even though shipments are already down 5%, and we're in April, 8% for domestics, pretty bad. But I'm going to say that beer has a pretty decent year. And I think we're down because we have proximity bias, and it's just been so bad the last couple of weeks. But the comps are tough in the beginning of the year this year. So the comps will get easier. So we have that. We can't rely on weather, so we've rolled that out. We can't rely on population increase, so we've rolled that out. So here's what I'm going with. I'm going with that, yes, people are going to start drinking less, but they're going to trade to beer because it's low alcohol. And when I say beer, I include FMBs and really RTDs in there too, because I just think in a can, single serve, it's single serve nation. You know, I watched Fight Club. You watched Fight Club, right,
Yeah.
Gordon?
Uh-huh.
It's
Long
single
time
serve.
ago.
Welcome to our single serve life, ladies and gentlemen. You know, having said that, I did enjoy pouring out this shot of Willie's. I am feeling it.
Yeah, I felt a little something.
I feel like I saw it on set and I've seen it start to offset in this very hour. In the
Yeah,
middle,
really?
smack dab in the middle, you guys were like, a
Yeah.
little bit. And
Yeah.
now you're
Yeah.
coming back to earth. Wow. This is like clockwork.
It's pretty
Science.
good. Yeah. So Jordan's off the rest of the week.
We need to clip that in the front so people stick with the podcast.
Yeah, we will. All right. Well, listen, as you know, I could sit here and bullshit with you folks all day. However, somebody must get back to work to bring our readers the latest. So I invite you, gentle readers and listeners, and our editors here at this round table, have a great weekend. And we'll see you next week on BeerNet Radio.